Of Matric marking for 2020. Pupils wrapped up their assessment only last month. Of course, that delayed by the pandemic, and everything else following is running late to usual timeframes. Results are set to be released only next month. Let's give you a close look now at what processes are being followed inside the marking centres across the country. Basil Manuel is the Executive Director for the National Professional Teachers Organisation. We know it better as NAPTOSA. Basil, good afternoon to you and welcome. So just confirm for us, first of all, the marking process is underway, I understand. How's it going?
Jeremy, good afternoon. Yes, the marking centres all open today, and today is the day of training where people are looking at memoranda. First of all, the senior markers, and then the markers in general, and then, of course, doing some test marking so that we get the standards correct. And then by tomorrow, marking in earnest starts. So it's a process whereby you have to orientate a lot of people. But this time around, it's different. It's not just orientation into the marking, checking the memorandum, agreeing to answers, and so on. But it is also about COVID-19. It's about the protocols. It's about what we can expect and all the things that we should be doing as the different groups that make up the marking centre. So it's a bit different this year.
There's obviously concern, there's fear, there are new systems, as you've just outlined for us. The concern would be possibly that this could impact on the process negatively, that things could become, could be marked incorrectly, I think is the polite way of putting it. What protocols are in place to prevent that from happening?
Jeremy, I don't think it's so much about the quality of marking. The quality of marking is dependent on the people who are there and, of course, the training they've had. I think the concern more is about the additional pressure brought to bear on the group that is there. Remembering that this group comes from all different parts of a province. They've been brought together, and so that heightens the concerns and fear amongst themselves. Have the folk come from safe environments so they keep themselves safe? Is everybody going to be safe within that environment? And that is why the protocols become so extremely important. And the fact that we've got many more marking centres, we have fewer people per marking room. Now I'm talking about the centre being split into many rooms, where we've limited the number to 15 to 20 at a maximum. These all add to the safety factor. And then, of course, the actual marking happens. Because orientation is also going to be different, we can no longer cluster 300 people together to go through a memorandum. We've got to do it in smaller groups. It takes a little longer. So these are all the nuances that come with the times we are in. But it's also an expression of the willingness to change what was the good old way. The good old way wasn't so good at any rate. So now we are changing certain things. And of course, we hope that this will also spell an improvement to the systems that have been there. So it's a completely new ballgame. People who have been there before will tell you that this year is different to what they've known before.
There's also a domino effect because we have late marking, and this is obviously going to have a negative or a potentially negative impact on the academic calendar itself. How are you looking at that, or is that next week's problem?
Jeremy, let's talk about the domino effect. First of all, simply just if we have a sporadic outbreak in a marking centre or in more than one marking centre, that could have an impact that, besides bringing in the new people that are on the waiting list of markers, if it is late in the day, of course, that further delays marking, and we could see that marking may not be completed within the allocated 18 days, although we are pretty confident that enough time has been built in to do that. But should it not happen, given that there are so many unknowns, we may have a delay by a day or two. That has a knock-on effect, even with the standardization by Umalusi and even with the ministerial announcement of the outcome of the results. That's the one set of domino effects. The other is, of course, because marking had to start late, the academic year kicks off late. But with COVID as it stands at the moment, that does mean that we are still in the COVID regime. We are going to start the year off with the staggered attendance. which we were hoping would have been better this year. But of course, we were hoping against hope itself, because things have just gone from bad to worse. And already that spells quite a bit, because you have your matriculants and your grade 11s that don't have the luxury of time in terms of catch-up. They must complete the syllabus for the end of the year, academic year. We have the grade 1s, on the other hand, where if the foundation isn't built properly, they're going to battle throughout their schooling career. So there are many, many factors where the so-called domino effect comes into play, and we are worried about it. However, there are 3 weeks to go before schools open. Who knows, we may see the peak happen and then a downward trajectory in the infections. And that, of course, would spell something good. We may even get to a place where we can admit more learners at a time. But that's pure speculation. At the moment, the regulations are in place and they make provision for the 50% attendance because of social distancing and all those other safety factors that we now know so well.
Right. Basil Manuel, I'm going to leave it there, the Executive Director for the National Professional Teachers Organisation. Thank you indeed for explaining what is a very difficult and complicated process. Monday